At the ARDC near Meade last week, we talked with UNL Extension beef veterinarian Richard Randle about things cattle producers can be doing to prepare for winter. Some of those animals are likely finding a new feed source, with the state's crop growers clearing corn and soybean fields. The latest USDA state report puts farmers 90% complete in soybeans and 57% finished in corn. But storms towards the end of the growing season might have knocked more corn and soybeans to the ground and in some cases provided an opportunity for new plants to emerge. That could be a problem to grazing livestock. We started our discussion with Richard talking about foot rot, another issue to be aware of for cattle out in fields.
The things we always are concerned about, depending on the weather, what kind of weather we get, wet weather, get some mud, plus the sharp stalks and those kind of things can lead to damage to the foot and subsequently lead to foot rot. So we want to be pretty close watching those cows for any sign of early limping and those kind of things.
What's the treatment or remedy if you do notice anything?
Typically they're going to respond pretty well to antibiotics if you get to them early, if there's any really low spots, low muddy spots, if you can get them out of that for a period of time, that's going to help.
What's the danger to grazing some stalks where maybe there was hail damage and you have some plant regrowth in there?
Well, there's two or three things that we have to consider there. If you get hail damage, there may be more of the actual corn grain on the ground than anticipated, and if they get too much of that, can lead to some acidosis problems. We've also heard of even some hailed beans, hailed-on beans, where the beans dropped and actually sprouted. And those young plants like that, the concern you'd have probably mostly is if we get a pretty good frost and a wilt on those, it could lead to some prussic acid problems. So if you get that, then you're going to want to hold them off that till a week or so till that can dissipate if you think there's going to be a problem there.
For producers that have, like what we do behind us, a fall calving herd, what are some things that they need to keep in mind here as we go into winter?
Obviously, you know, they're probably in the middle of that calving now, and the weather's good, and that's all great. But want to pay attention to dramatic sudden changes in the weather, especially extreme cold and wet can be pretty tough on those calves. So ensuring that they got a good dry area place, some shelter breaks from the inclement weather is going to be something we want to pay attention to. What
nutrient requirements does winter bring along with it?
Well, obviously we don't see that much more. If we get good fall weather, we like that. We have some pretty good fall grazing. Those cows are going to be probably in pretty good shape and deal with that. But then as we begin to get into that colder weather, that's going to require increased maintenance in those cows. So you got those cows with those new calves on their sides like that, you got to ensure that that energy and protein is going to be plenty adequate for those animals.
For the whole herd, are you looking at any culling options right now and trying to find some weaker animals before you go into winter?
Well, certainly, you know, it's a busy time of the year. We've been weaning calves, we're preg checking cows, so we certainly want to find those cows that are open so we can deal with those animals and move them out if necessary. Depending on what you have for winter feeding situations, there may be some short-bred cows, certainly those cows with short teeth, leg and udder problems, those kind of things. You certainly want to look at those as good candidates of potentially culling them and not having to deal with them through that winter feeding period.
UNL's beef website has more resources on herd health and grazing corn stalks. We'll link to that information on the Market Journal homepage.